Hey everybody,
All right, here we go.
Riot Mort here, and it is time for the patch 1420 rundown. We are in the back half of the set. We're getting towards the end, towards the big serious competitions, things like that, and so we're trying to make sure the set is as balanced as possible.
Yep.
What we've seen so far on live is that the meta has definitely shifted into late game, a lot around Arcana, Preserver, and Fairy. So 4 costs, very dominated 4 costs. That being said, we're not going to balance Thrash here. We're way too late in the set. But this patch is a lot of what I'm going to call micro changes. You're going to see a lot of changes, but they're all very, very tiny. So we don't actually expect things to change a ton, but we'll go over it as we go into it. The other thing is I'm trying something different this rundown. I'm grouping up the large and the small changes by the section. So hopefully that will make you not go, wait, they're not nerfing this, and then we'll get to it quicker. So let's see how it goes and jump into it. All right, on the system side, the golems are all being buffed. Their HP is going up. Their armor is going up.
What?
This is mostly because support golem 2 is being nerfed very heavily, which will allow us to buff all the golems. So support golem 2 will now be a lot weaker. We'll talk about that later. But golems ended up stronger.
Okay.
The unit star up combined ceremony is now instant. This is mostly relevant when you're 3-starring a champion at the last second. We talked about this 2 patches ago. We pulled it out because we thought it was causing a bug. It wasn't. So now we can put it back in safely. This is in. Sweet.
I thought it was already in.
Okay, this one's really niche, but I want to call this one out. When looking for the strongest champions, if 2 champs are the same character and have the same number of items, the higher star copy will always be the strongest. What this is referring to is let's say you're playing 2 tanky Nunu. And a Honeymancer comp, and you have 3 items on the 3-star Nunu, and then the 2-star Nunu, you put a 3rd item on. Well, it'll instantly be the most recent, and beforehand would become the strongest, which is what you don't want. So this prevents that. It's like I said, it's a niche case.
I see.
But we're handling it to make sure it just doesn't. You never really ever want that to be the case. So that has been dealt with. And then finally, we made a change to one of the portals. Let them cook kind of devolved into pray for a Reforger, use the Reforger on the frying pan or the spatula to have 2 of them, and then just get 2 portal emblems or 2 whatever emblems. Kind of defeated the purpose of the portal. So we've changed it. It is now make them cook. Same thing. You start with a spatula and a frying pan, but Reforgers will not drop. It is impossible to get a Reforger on this portal.
Wow.
You cannot get a Reforger. You cannot get Pandora's items. It will not change.
So what happens with the thing that's like big grab bag? Do you just not get the Reforger? So big grab bag is noticeably worse?
I've tried telling my stream this. They didn't get it. They kept asking questions about it, but I'm telling you.
They don't get it.
There are no Reforgers. So it will force you to cook. Now you can just slam it for that quick tactician's items, or you can cook. So should be pretty fun. All right, on the traits side,
maybe it's not offered.
Large changes. Like I said, Arcana has kind of been one of the 3 dominant things that you see at the end game right now. So we're going to be hitting pretty much all of Arcana.
Oh, wow.
You could debate that the Xerath wasn't really necessary, but we don't want every game's end game to just be how much Arcana can you get. That being said, these aren't big swings.
Again.
For example, Tom Kench's HP went from 75 to 65. It's still going to be good, right? We're not trying to balance Thrash these out of the meta, but they are going to be nerfed. So Hecarim AD at 4 and 5 gets nerfed. Tom Kench HP at 4 and 5 gets nerfed. Yeah, we're not even nerfing the 3, so you can still play that.
3 is still good.
And then Xerath true damage being nerfed at the 3, the 4, and the 5. So, yeah.
Okay.
Bastion. Bastion has been something that is basically unplayable past 2. This is one of our bigger swings. The 4-piece is getting 5 more armor and MR. The 6-piece is getting 25 more armor and MR.
That's insane.
And the 8-piece should actually be a playable comp. Literally just won with it on stream last game. But 200 armor and MR, this thing should be tough to deal with. We do want Bastion to be something that is playable, so it's getting buffed.
Okay, so when they say a big swing, it's a massive swing, and what this does is it makes hero augments. You have to remember one thing: there's 3 units that are hero augments that are bastions: Lilia, Poppy, and Nunu. And they still haven't made the combination of raid boss exclusive with hero augments. So you're gonna run into and Shen. Oh, you're right, and Shen. I forgot. So there are 4 Bastion hero augments. if they hit raid boss and they get like it can't be, it just feels like it can't be bad, but maybe it is. But 6 Bastion with 100 base armor and MR with hero augments, like Nunu already is very good with vertical Bastion with Sweet Tooth if you can get to the spot, because you play Nunu Diana and you play like a Kog'Maw 3 in the back. That's actually kind of good, but people don't know about that build very much because they're just focused on like Ziggs. But I think that this is something to keep in mind. It could be insanely strong if it gets online.
Eldridge, this is another one that we're trying to buff up a bit as well. The AP per star level, this should be red. It is a nerf. The star scaling on Eldridge is actually secretly OP. Not many people have figured this out, but if you can somehow get like 3-star Ashe, 3-star Elise, 3-star Syndra, 3-star Neela, and then hit 7 Eldridge, it's actually insane.
You know who knows this?
But because of that, we're going to lower the amount of AP it gets so that we can buff it elsewhere. And so the buffs here, 3 pieces getting buffed at every stage. So Eldridge should be a stronger opener. 5 pieces getting some pretty massive buffs here. If you look at the stage 4 and stage 5 numbers, they went from 1.6, 1.75 to 2, 2.5. This means 5 Eldridge is going to have a lot more HP in the late game. So if you're stuck at 5 Eldridge for a little while, it won't be as detrimental. And then the 7 piece actually doesn't need as big a buff. It's still getting some extra HP as well. But 7 Eldridge is actually pretty good. And so our goal here is buff the things that get you to 7 Eldridge with a little more power, and it should be pretty playable here. So hopefully Eldridge ends up being playable.
Okay, so as I said, Soju actually knew that reroll, like the wins that part of the reason why Soju played so much like Syndra reroll and Eldritch is because he kind of knew the scaling was really good. But obviously it's like hit or miss. This is pretty insane. 5 Eldritch buff is like pretty insane. Doesn't that just make 5 Eldritch in, like the best comp on stage 3? Oh wait, this is stage 5, right? Or sorry, stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, okay, never mind. This is stage 6, 2.5. Never mind. I miscounted. But like, this is a significant buff at stage 4. Stage 3, it's like, yeah. But like, this is actually starting to get really, really high numbers. I guess like, okay, if you're playing 5 Eldritch in stage 6, though, I wonder what that means. Because that means that you're not playing weak units like Ashe, and you probably can like start teching in Mage for Nami or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see.
Mage, we did some calculations, and 3 Mage is actually like really bad for a trait, and Mage has been kind of struggling all set
because it nerfs the damage,
with the exception of the patch where you could play like the Veigar Vex line, and even then you mostly played 5 Mage, you didn't really play 7 Mage. So Mage is going to get a buff here. 3 Mage is going to go to 85, 5 is going to go to 100, and 7 is going to go to 125. Now, I will say from my PBE testing, mages look a little strong, so we're gonna if they end up too strong, we will react very quickly. But calling it out that like there is a little bit of risk here, but we want mages to be another playable line. So calling that out,
Veigar,
calling the shot. We'll see where they end up.
Reroll Soraka.
Portal is another trait that actually is pretty strong, and you might be wondering why it needs buffs. But the problem with Portal is that it falls off a cliff. If you have 8 Portal going into stage 5, it'll fall off really, really hard. And so specifically what we're buffing here is the things that actually scale with your army strength, so that your army will be a bit stronger, but without buffing like the Portal bombs or the Portal units. So here what you're getting is the Jarvan standard that comes out will give more attack speed at 3 and 5. And again, more attack speed with a bunch of bad units isn't going to help, but if you've got, good equipped units, this should be nice. And the snacks heal at 6 and 8 will also get buffed. They'll heal more % of your units. And again, if they're healing itemless units, that's not very good. But this should be a small buff to help Portal scale up at the 6 and the 8.
Okay, well, that just makes Portal's AVP, if you have the 3-2 emblem, it's already like a 3.9 or something like that. If you actually look at the augment data with Portal, it's like it's already like a 3.9 at Masters. It's gonna be like a 3.8 or 7, which is pretty crazy. But Mort is not wrong. What it is Portal is insane in the mid game, and if you get stuck on 8 Portal, you just usually play for a top 4. It's actually arguable whether or not Portal should actually be in the S tier on our Academy tier list, because part of the reason why is that if you get Portal, it just looks so good in the data, and you just usually cruise to easy top 4s. But He is not wrong. The late game scaling is bad. It's interesting. It's an interesting choice though to buff the attack speed and the heal. I'm not entirely sure how to visualize this, so I'm a little skeptical. But yeah.
All right, more large ones. Fairy. Fairy's in a weird spot right now. Fairy's very frustrating to fight against. If you've ever fought a Rakan 2, Callista 1,
Yeah.
and that Rakan just never dies, and you're like, guess I'll die because Rakan certainly isn't.
Yeah.
But that being said, the Fairy vertical is actually not that good. So you're seeing a pretty big power shift here. Fairy 3 and 5 are going to lose some HP, so it's harder to get to that spot. But when you hit 7, you're going to get a little bit more HP. Seems fair.
Okay.
When you have 7 or 9, again, trying to reward the vertical here, the crowns will do more damage. So those crowns will get a bit of a buff. Now, here's the big swing. The armor itself is going to get its healing and shielding amp cut from 25% to 20%.
Wow.
And the healing from Queen, this is the thing that was keeping the 5 Fairy Rakan alive forever, cut from 12% to 5%.
That's
This
massive.
is a big nerf. This should make Rakan actually eventually die, maybe. Now, to compensate, because we didn't want to kill this, it is getting 150 extra HP on the armor.
That does help.
A little bit of flat health, not bad.
With preservers, that does help.
Radiant armor follows similar, but not nearly as big a nerf, because we don't really need to nerf 9 Fairy that much, but it gets 500 extra HP, loses 10% on the heal shielding amp, and only 5% on the healing Queen. So again, the goal here is you should hopefully see maybe some more 7 Fairies, but less 5 Fairy unkillable Rakans off a Callista 1.
All right. It seems like we're buffing a lot of the verticals. Like we just buff Portal, we just buff Eldritch, we just buff Fairy. If this ends up making it that 7 Fairy is a lot better because now you can get a much more damage amp and much more reliable, then it might turn back into a emblem check meta type of situation. But this is a huge deal. Anyone who says that this is not a big deal is not paying attention to the way Rageblade scaling works on Callista. If you are thinking about the fact that Callista does regularly 12 to 15,000 damage, you're giving 1,000 plus health to Rakan, which is with those resistances, with the preserver, which they're about to nerf as well. It really adds up. So if you think that's not a big enough nerf, I think you are asking them to balance thrash and make it unviable, which is not smart. So I think this is a huge deal.
And then Preserver, this is the other late game comp that you see a ton of. 3, 4, 5 Preservers, Morgana, Rakan, Bard, all that
good.
stuff.
It's way too good.
So Preserver
way too
getting
strong.
a slight touchdown on both the HP and mana regen at 3, 4, and 5. 2 Preserver, still a solid splash. So, yeah. And then Shapeshifter. Shapeshifter is another vertical that's been struggling. It's going to get a small buff here at the 4, the 6, and the 8. This is supposed to help champions like Nasus, Nasus,
Man, I'm
Nico,
getting more
and
dogged
Swing.
again.
So, yeah.
Hero augment buff as well.
Sugarcraft. Sugarcraft is getting a buff of all of its stats by
Also a
about 10%.
buff to Smolder.
Goes from 20, 30, 35 to 22, 33, 36. And then the bigger buff, I think this is a pretty big buff. Don't sleep on this one. Is that if you're only running the 2-piece for a while, you're actually going to get 50% more sugar. So you can actually build those stacks earlier from the 2-piece and then go to the 4-piece. Or even, I've had pretty successful games where you're just running the 2-piece all game.
That's a big deal.
And you can even make it to the final stack with just the 2-piece. So Sugarcraft should have some more options. This should help champs like Soraka, Jinx, Gwen, stuff like that. And yes, I'm sure people are going, Gwen, she doesn't need help. We'll get to that.
Okay, so when he says final stack, he means the 7th layer of base AD or of AD stats. He's not talking about 2,300. There's no way you can get to 2,300 with 2 sugar. That is just ridiculous. This is really big buff though. So now this actually is a big Jinx buff because Jinx Wukong, Bard, this actually might be a really profound buff because the way Jinx gains a bunch of attack speed and gets a bunch of stats and she's Hunter, it could be really big. Yeah, we're talking about the 600. Who else is a Sugarcraft? Bard, Rumble. I guess it buffs his hero augments subtly. Yeah, I mean Gwen. He said we'll get to Gwen in a little bit, so we'll see.
And then Witchcraft. Witchcraft is in a weird spot. The 2-piece has secretly been very OP for a long time. Minus 120 flat health early game especially.
Yeah.
Very, very good. But we wanted to keep Witchcraft kind of power neutral. So we're nerfing the 2-piece. It's going down from 150 to 120. But the 4-piece is getting stronger, going from 4% bleed to 6% bleed. So
Okay.
Witchcraft should be stronger at 4. We've seen it do some pretty cool stuff. It works really well with the augment, by the way, the potions augment, where everyone bleeds out a lot and they last forever.
Yeah.
So definitely some cool builds there you can try out.
Oh, potions, witchcraft.
Right.
I can see it.
And then on the traits small side, these are smaller changes that we don't think are going to change a lot, but are still important. They only hit 1 breakpoint. 5-piece Honeymancy is going to get a buff. We've seen 3-piece be quite good, 5 less so. So the damage amp per B is
because
going to go
3 is OP. Not that you need to buff 5.
is going to get a buff. Hunter 2 is fine. Hunter 6 is great. Hunter 4, not so much. 5% more AD.
This makes Cogma
Multi-Striker 3, this trait has also been secretly very, very OP for a long time. It grants your team like plus 45% damage, which is bonkers for a 3-piece. So Multi-Striker 3 is getting lowered from 30 to 25.
They double nerf hack
also hits
then.
things like, the Callista comp in that regard. Pyro, the 2-piece, this hits like a Pyro Varus 2. You're already getting the Execute. You don't really need 10% attack speed as well. So Pyro is going to get nerfed from 10 per 5% at 2-piece.
Big deal.
Scholar 4 is going to get 5 more AP. This should help you transition. We've seen 2 Scholar be good, 6 Scholar be good, 4, so 5 more AP there.
Wait, they're buffing my boy Rise.
Vanguard 4-piece.
These are not small at all, in my opinion.
They're going to get 5% more shielding. The 6-piece is also going to get more DR. So right now it was 15%. It'll be 20%. Now, do note with
Warwick.
this one, in-game, the tooltip will still say 15%.
God, dude, this Warwick's already unstoppable, man.
It is a text bug. It is still giving you 20%.
Come on.
It is just a tooltip bug. So the number's 20%. It says 15. You got to trust. Check your stats. It works fine. And then finally, 6 Warrior. 6 Warrior having 20% DR is a little much. It also was weird that Warrior had more DR than Vanguard.
Yeah.
That's weird. So Warriors are going to lose
really
5%
good.
of their DR at the 6-piece. So 6 Warrior, a little less tanky.
Okay, so they're basically swapping Vanguard and Warrior DR. So Vanguard is 20 DR, Warrior is 15 DR. We now know how good baseline is of 20 DR. Part of it was that Warriors also got damage reduction and Omnivamp and damage amp, so we just got like everything. Part of the reason why Warrior is really good. 6 Warrior is going to be worse. 6 Vanguard is going to be better. That does mean Warwick reroll, assuming they're not changing Warwick or changing Corrupt Vampire Acceptor. That's just going to mean that he's even more oppressive in the late game, which is not very fun. But they are buffing 4 Vanguard. This is a big deal. 4 Vanguard, what this does is it gives you a lot more versatility in the mid game, because you can just play 4 Vanguard plus plus backline. And that's a good thing, because remember when we played 4 Vanguard everything? We played 4 Vanguard Syndra mages. We played 4 Vanguard help me out here. We played 4 Vanguard plus other stuff. Blasters, thank you. Yes. 4 Vanguard, 4 Blasters. And that was largely so the reason why it's important is because Vanguards are cheap and they're plentiful. So you could play Blitzcrank, Warwick, Rumble, Galio, Mordekaiser, and like now you have other options you can roll. The problem was that in the past the low cost units were too efficient. So like Syndra was like way too good, so it just made the Vanguard version way too oppressive and stable at 2-star. But this should give you more things to roll for besides what's currently Arcana and Preserver. That's the only frontline you can roll for. Can't roll for Shapeshifters. You can't really roll for Vanguards. And you definitely cannot roll for Bastions. So it's like they're trying to make this a lot better, which I think is good. Scholar Piece is like, I actually don't even think this is necessary. I actually think 4 Scholar is quite good once you hit Milio. But maybe they're just making it so that's less of a Milio check. And also, this might buff... Again, they're doing a lot of subtle things, but this also buffs the hero augments. Like, you have to remember that like these hero augments are getting buffed in very subtle ways. Like they're buffing the Vertical Bastion, which buffs a bunch of like the Poppy and the Lilia and whatever. They're buffing the Scholar, which helps buff the Ari variations, those kinds of things. 4 Hunter, this is a Kog'Maw buff because you play 4 Hunter and Kog'Maw. This is like a really big deal. This nerfs Callista even more, and this also nerfs Varus pretty hard. So
on to champions. Elise is a champion. She does exist. She's not very good. Now she's going to heal more. Cool. She should be a better opener. Should help Eldridge as well. Jace.
I mean,
Jace has kind of fallen out of favor as well. He's going to get some more AD on his spell. Nothing crazy here. Just a small buff for Jace. Namzi
well, you're buffing
another
both
one.
of them,
Namzi,
though.
this should
And
open
Shapes.
up. We wanted Namzi reroll to be a playable thing. It hasn't quite delivered. So going to get 2 more AD back, and then if you can get
AD.
3 Dragon in, the spell is going to go all the way up to 600%. So this is a big upgrade for 3 Dragon
600%.
Nazi. Definitely give that a try.
What?
Twitch.
Okay.
Twitch has secretly been a very, very good character. Does a lot of damage in the early game.
Secret?
We
Who?
decided to nerf the fall off damage. So this is if you ult somebody and the first target got hit for 100, before the second target would get hit for 90, now it'll be 80. So it's just going to nerf the fall off damage of Twitch's ult, so he's not getting as much free damage.
Yeah.
And then Zoe. Zoe's another one here that has fallen off a little bit. So Zoe's going to get some small damage buffs. And then, more importantly, if Zoe's missile will now retarget to the nearest living enemy if the target dies while it's in flight.
Holy, that's actually a big deal. Zoe fizzles less. This reminds me, in set 9, there was a 1-cost Samira who would shoot her bullet, and then if it missed, you just lost an amazing amount of DPS. This is basically the same thing. Single targets not missing is an incredible DPS change, and they buffed the spell damage, and they buffed his Bastion Scholars, and they buffed the opener with Jace, and they buffed Vertical Portal, and they buffed 4 Witchcraft. Zoe just got like 6-way buffed.
This is supposed to help the Scholar builds, so that Zoe can be a playable champion. All right, then we have the small side. Again, stuff that we don't think is going to change much, but still worth calling out. Ashe going to get a 10 mana buff. Ashe kind of, especially with the Multi-Striker 3 nerf, will end up a little weaker. So we want to make sure Ashe is compensated. Gets 10 mana off her spell. Blitzcrank has been really, really strong for a while. We don't want to nerf his like ceiling, but man, when that shield lasts 6 seconds in the early game, and you can't get through it, there's just no windows of killing him.
Yeah.
It also standardizes him with basically every other shield in the game. So Blitzcrank's shield is going to be 4 seconds. Lilia is another champ that has generally fallen off, not necessarily at 3-star, but as an opener, she's just not that good. So the 1-star is going to get a little bit more healing. 2-star is going to get a bit more healing. 3-star like plus 10. And again, this should help Fairy a little bit in the early game.
Yeah.
Especially with the armor nerfs and stuff like that. And then Poppy, same thing. Shield duration, kind of getting that standardized, plus 1 whole second on that shield duration. Woo!
That's not irrelevant for early game, because that 1 extra second shield duration ends up swinging fights by a lot. How many times do you lose early game by like 100 HP or less? So assuming that her shield ends up popping, but they're hero augment buffs, but this like they're buffing Poppy and like the Zoe opener. And I guess that's okay, because like that they did nerf the Witchcraft HP a little bit, but it's all just gonna add up. It's all gonna add up. They're saying that they're doing a lot of small changes, but in totality, there's like a lot of big changes happening.
With the armor nerfs and stuff like that. And then Poppy, same. It's interesting that Twitch had only a 10% fall off, and Seraphine had a 35% fall off. So Seraphine again hits the first target for 100. Second target would get hit for 65. Will now get hit for 70. So she'll be able to AoE a little bit better.
Okay, so they're buffing Mage, her base damage, and Seraphine opener has to be good. Like, I don't even think Seraphine was bad. Like, part of the reason why Seraphine fell off in the early game is because they changed 3 Fairy, which is a big deal. But I'm pretty sure Seraphine's like a good unit. So the Seraphine Soraka Galley opener with Rumble is actually underrated. Don't sleep on that at all.
Warwick is very, very strong, especially if you have a Corrupted Vamp Scepter. He'll still be strong, especially with a Corrupted Vamp Scepter.
Yep.
But we're nerfing his peak a little bit. Very small amount here. So his peak won't be as good. But his opener, if you have him at 1-star, he might stay alive a little longer. So, all right.
That's actually, it's a net buff because I buff 6 Vanguard.
2 cost. Ari, this champ's borderline unplayable right now. I mean, there's a couple people who've made it work in EU, but generally not very good. Gonna give her a 10% buff to help her out.
EU.
Just get her competing with everyone else. Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw's a weird one. Kog'Maw is like the
280?
ultimate top 4 champion. His top 4 rate is bonkers, but he never wins games, ever.
You killed
basically like
Xerath.
one of the lowest win rates we've ever had on a 2 cost. So trying to make changes here that shift that a bit, it's tricky because we can't just buff him, because then he'd become really the ultimate top 4 machine. So we had to do some little bit of changes here.
Weird.
We're putting more power in his spell to see if that helps, so that his spell could actually finish things
Who
off
buff
in the late
Cog?
game. So -2 AD, but spell goes down by 5 mana and hits for 20% more base on AD. It is a buff. It is a very tiny buff. You can't take a big swing here because, again, that top 4 rate is scary.
You said large.
Trying to help Kog'Maw a little. And then Syndra.
I think Re-Relay is going to win regionals. Holy cow. They're buffing Kog'Maw. I think Replay is back. He's going to a second world championship. If you look at his profile, I don't even know how many times he's played Kog'Maw. If you look at every top NA profile, Toronto, Tokyo, Dish Soap, Robin, Milk, Wage and Iverson, look at their top carries. Top carry, Rise. Dish Soap, top carry, Rise. Robin Songs, top carry, Varus. Top carry, Rise. Wage and Iverson, but then you go to Replay. Where is he at? This dude is at top carry Kog'Maw. This guy has grinded hundreds and hundreds of games of Kog'Maw. Oh yeah, it's time, man. It's time.
Syndra's going to get a buff. Her damage numbers are now officially over where they were in the launch patch, but that just goes to show you how much that attack speed change we made in the first patch really affected her. So she's still not going to be great, I don't think. But this should at least get her more playable. If you like high roll her, maybe it works.
Buffing Eldritch.
It's pretty interesting that like that cast speed change really made all the difference.
It did.
Because our damage numbers are back here. So
her damage. Okay, they've fully reverted Syndra's damage numbers from the base, from the very beginning of the set. They buffed 4 Vanguard. They buffed Mages. They buffed Eldritch. Both the opener and the vertical. But they did change her animation speed, and that's been all the difference. So we'll see. But how funny is that? That means all they needed to do was change her cast time in the very first batch. But like, you know, they took a huge swing at it. That's really interesting.
All right, on the small side, Akali, 10 mana buff. Kind of makes up for the early Pyro nerf, because that's more targeted at like Varus than it is at Akali.
I think this is like the 4th Akali buff in a row.
Cast more and be a bit more of a carry. Galio, the spell does flat damage reduction. It's not %DR, it's flat, which is a little weird. Trying to help early Vanguard, early Mage, make Galio actually feel kind of tanky.
Portal opener, man.
Neela, shield duration. Again, trying to standardize that a bit. And then Rumble 1 and 2. This is supposed to mostly help like Sugarcraft starts. Sugarcraft openers are really reliant on Rumble. And most of the time they don't roll for Rumble 3. But Rumble 1 and 2 should be a bit tankier during the spell.
I disagree. So, cool. I disagree. I'm pretty sure Rumble 2 is like the best opener that you could play for a lot of comps right now, because you just have Rumble 2 hold items, and he is Rumble 2 is kind of a monster in the early game. And he also links you to a bunch of Arcana builds. I mean, that's part of like why though, because like Rumble leads to Varus. Rumble could lead to Gwen and Fiora and Karma. You could even use Rumble to be like, you know, your setup for Callista, because you could play. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. So yeah, I disagree, but whatever.
And most of the time they don't roll for Rumble 3, but Rumble 1 and 2 should be a bit tankier during the spell. So cool. All right, 3 cost Hecarim. Still Hecarim 3 if you can hit him, which is hard because Arcana is so contested. But he still has like the absolute highest cap in the game. Yep. So this is meant to nerf him.
But you can't hit him.
We're nerfing his base AD by 5, which is a pretty big nerf. But we're giving him a little bit back on the cleave, just so that the cleave still feels pretty impactful, pretty minor. Again, meant to be a nerf. This is a nerf to Hecarim. Hui is another champion that has really struggled to make his place in the meta.
Yep.
He's just not very good. His animations are slow.
Yep.
We can't really speed up the animations right now, so we're just going to give him more power.
Okay.
So this is a pretty chunky buff. This is bigger than 10%, so we don't usually swing that hard, but this is another one of the big swings in the patch. Hui is going to be stronger. Maybe help some of the blaster comps, but less
or
Varus
Vanguard
blaster
Hui.
and more Ezreal Hui blaster. So should maybe get that in there. Jinx, massive buff here. Not really. Tiny buff here. 2 more AD. Gonna let Jinx hit a little harder. 5 was too much, though. 5 was a 10% buff. She doesn't need a 10% buff. Remember, she's also getting the Sugarcraft buff.
That's right. So and the Hunter buff.
Really light here.
Sugar
and this is what I'm
Hunter
talking
buff.
about, guys. We're doing tiny changes. We're in the micro change place. This is not supposed to balance Thrash. Nico, even with the shapeshifter buff, still kind of struggles to be a tank. At 3-star, just really not very good. Gonna let her cast more. Mana cost goes down by 15. Still think she struggles for the most part, but again,
really
can't go crazy.
That's surprising to hear.
All right, on the small side, Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser is getting nerfed, whatever. Shield's going to be higher, so he can be a little tankier. Shield will last longer, because again, his job is mostly to be a tank, but the damage amp per cast is going to go down, so he's not just going to be all of a sudden doing 5,000 damage. Because
I think they're literally buffing every Eldritch unit.
Again, mostly to help Eldridge
Syndra
be a little tankier. Synergizes well with Vanguard as well. Shields up longer. You get that Vanguard buff. Good stuff. Shen, shield duration, same thing, 4 seconds, lasts a little longer. Veigar. Veigar's weird because we buffed Mage, and Veigar is the one Mage who's already been quite successful. So we don't want to buff 3-star Veigar. That's incorrect.
Yeah.
Kind of needs a nerf, to be honest. But Veigar won in the early game, kind of griefing, like actually pretty terrible. So Veigar is going to have some pretty weird spell scaling here.
Yeah, this looks weird.
So Veigar is going to be the 1 star is buffed quite a bit, 2 stars buffed a little bit, and 3 stars actually nerfed. So, by the way, people are saying in Twitch chat, because I glanced over, Shen doesn't have a shield duration. This should say buff duration. He has a buff that gives himself DR.
Oh, that's a good call out. I didn't even remember.
Sorry.
Dude, chat's so good about that.
Veigar 3 nerfed. Overall, from what I've seen on PvE of all the mage problems, Veigar is actually in a good spot. So this seems to have been quite effective.
Okay.
Vex. Vex is getting a buff at 1 and 2 star, again, to help mages get there along the way. I will say this one has made me pretty nervous from my PvE testing. Vex looking really, really strong. So keep an eye on that. But this again meant to help mages in the early game, because mages early game suck.
Okay, so now you open up, they buff Seraphine, they buff mages, they buff Vex. You open up like a Crown Guard or a Stone Plate on a Vex. And now instead of having to deal with Blitzcrank 2, you have to deal with the Vex in the early game, who's gonna 1,000,000 you. Oh man, that's a super big buff for the Fat Shield. Because remember, she like double cast with Mage. Oh, I guess she has AP cut, but like you put some AP on her, you put like Crown Guard on her. Oh man. Why are they nerfing Veigar? Because Veigar's top end is extremely good. It's usually getting there is the hard part, but if you get there, yeah.
And then Wukong kind of good early, but falls off a freaking cliff. So trying to give him a little bit of shield at 2 and a little bit more shield at 3 star, so he can be playable just like he used to be. And
in the win
generally, from what we've seen, seems pretty close.
Thumbs up.
So
in the win Wukong, thumbs up.
All right, 4 cost. Wow, look at all those 4 cost nerfs. We're ruining the 4 cost meta. It's going to be a reroll meta. Varus does need a very slight nerf though, and again, didn't even go the full 5 AD here. Didn't want to kill Varus. From what we've seen, he's still very good, but this is a very tiny nerf to Varus to hopefully help him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
on the small side, Fiora is getting the same thing, but because she's at 75, it's actually less of a nerf.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a much less percent nerf, so Fiora very, very tiny. Gwen, same thing, just a really microscopic spell damage nerf, and it's only the base. Her snips still scale up just as much.
I see.
So, yeah, again, really tiny nerfs to the 4 costs here. They should still all be just as strong. And then Nasus is actually getting a buff, so that should help things. Nasus getting some HP back on his spell steal, especially at 1 star. I think this is going to make 1-star Nasus again kind of that terror he was early on, where if you get him on like stage 2 and 3,
lose subscription or sub subscription or whatever.
And then 5 cost again, ruining. This is going to make
okay. Just real quick on the 4 costs. So these are like the overperforming 4 costs. I'm glad they didn't nerf Callista, because I'm pretty sure Callista is not the problem. It's Rakan and the fairy thing. Also because Callista is pretty much unplayable, and any other variation besides that. She's basically support DPS for reroll at best. If anything, Callista herself might low-key use a buff if they like nerf the fairy aspect of it, but we'll see. So I think these are correct. I think Nasus is actually quite a poor tank ever since they gutted him from being way too strong. So, there's actually a fun anecdote where like people perceive Nasus to be much stronger than he is because he grows larger in size. And so when they see units like Nasus perform really well in the meta, they overestimate his impact because he grows bigger when he like casts. There's like a player psychological impact of that, where like if your unit just grows in size, it actually just makes people feel like it's way stronger than it actually is. I mean, even if it is strong, it's just like it multiplies the perception of it.
And then 5 cost, again, ruining the 5 cost meta here. We're actually buffing Camille. Camille is going to get buffed. Her spell and hookshot AD will do more damage. Again, so you'll notice kind of the trend of this patch here is buff some of those, 1, 2, and 3 costs that are
struggling.
Smolder?
What about my guy Smolder?
4 and 5 costs. So,
huh?
Yeah.
Where's my Smolder?
And then we have Briar getting a very slight nerf to her Ravenous bonus. Now it'll max out at 70 instead of 80. So Briar getting a tiny nerf. Milio 2, not really a big diff from Milio 1. So Milio 2 damage going to go up. Makes him kind of a beast and does help Scholar's endgame a lot.
Okay.
Milio 2 is quite good. And if you have Milio 2, maybe he'll give you some extra gold and items. The chance for that will
Wait, this is actually a pretty big buff.
Nora. This is another one where we're trying to nerf the 1-star Nora, especially the Yuumi side of things, and buff the 2-star. So 1-star Nora will heal a little less. 2-star will heal a little more. And then the AP and AD granted, which I think this was non-symmetrical because they wanted, like, the odds you were going to put it on an AD champ were lower, but it's very confusing.
Yeah.
So they're just equal now. It's 3 and 6.
Okay.
So, yeah. Then poor Smolder. Poor Smolder, our silly rambunctious dragon that likes to fly into death and get himself killed and then do no more damage because he's dead.
That's pretty significant.
Well, at least we can give him some armor and MR into scales so that maybe when he flies into the middle, he won't die as much.
I mean, probably not, because you're not really using a lot of, like, yeah, he takes 15% less damage from all those things, but like the problem is that when people lock onto him, like a Vhagar, like he flies in and Vhagar targets him, he's just instantly dead, so whatever. But okay, and you're also not putting defensive items on him, like he doesn't really benefit from anything defensive anyways. So this is interesting. This makes it so that Yuumi is much better on a frontliner now because they're giving more AP and more HP healing. So that's interesting. Something to think about.
All right, items. There are some item changes. Blue buff. Blue buff is quite a bit better than Shojin. We do want it to be better than Shojin on like a 30 mana user, but maybe not 8% better. So we're going to lower that to 5%. You shouldn't feel bad if you end up with a Shojin on Karma.
Yeah.
Right now you feel really bad.
So they're just nerfing blue buff?
A little less bad. Bramble Vest. This item sucks. Will it be better? Yeah. Will it be amazing? Might need. I mean,
these
more,
its just suck in general.
It gets
so
10 more. Dragon's Claw, same thing. Kind of sucks. Gets 10 more MR. Crown Guard. This item has been overpowered for a while. You're going to get 10 less AP after the shield breaks. Crown Guard doesn't need to be as insane as it is. So Crown Guard almost gives as much AP as Death Cap. That's weird. Doesn't need that.
Yeah.
And then Red Buff. This is another item where...
Oh my gosh.
Which would you rather have on your Karma? Red Buff or Morello?
Red Buff.
The answer is Red Buff.
Yeah.
Which is
weird damage amp.
and not good.
Yeah.
Should be Morello or at least close. So Red Buff is going to get nerfed, 3% less damage amp. So, yeah. And then one last change here, Unstable Treasure Chest. This item, a lot of the times what happens is you break it open, and then it flies towards the closest target who's at like 10% health and they die.
Yeah.
And you don't get any items, and you're sad. So now it will be thrown to the highest percent health allies instead. So hopefully it should land on like some backliners and take advantage of that and make Unstable Treasure Chest a little less troll.
Okay, so I mean that's a really big change. Unstable Treasure Chest. Okay, so like Unstable Treasure Chest means that if you need to itemize multiple backliners now, you're in a much better spot for it. So I'm thinking if you have like a 6 scholar, maybe not, but like mages, or like let's say you're playing like a portal situation where you want items on like Nora, Nami, and Rise. It's like a little bit awkward because you can't have items for all of them and your front line. So like ends up being something that you can play around more. Also, this makes treasure golems a pretty different dynamic because like treasure golem favors melee. Now it might favor ranged units. So this is interesting.
All right, augments. Augments, you're going to see a lot of nerfs. We're going to be trying to balance augments. We want to get to a world where there aren't any augments above like 4.2, at any stage. And so you're going to see a lot of nerfs here. Let's go through this. Precise planning. This is nerfed in the sense that you're not going to be getting 3 gold a turn from a silver augment, but buffed in the sense it's at least easier to activate. You only have to win by 4, or win or lose by 4.
This was such a fun one to play.
So that should be better.
Dang.
Risky moves, 3 less gold.
Still good, though.
Sad. I like that.
2 gold a turn is really good.
Avenge the Fallen. The buff from 20 to 30 made it playable, which is great. Little too playable.
Way too good.
So -2 to the stats.
Okay.
Not a big nerf. All right.
Oh.
And we're also at the point of the set where a lot of these crests are just really, really good. And we don't want to nerf the traits. We just want to nerf the augments. So Blaster Crest, no free Tristana. Chrono Crest, no free Zillion.
Wow.
Fairy Crest, no free Tristana. Frost Crest, no free Zillion. Honeymancer Crest, no free Nunu. Multi Striker Crest, no free Kassadin. Portal Crest, no free Kassadin. Pyro Crest, no free Akali. These augments will be worse. Not a lot worse, but worse.
We're set 6 now. Who loves set 6? Set 6, they just literally give you the emblem and nothing else. Oh, wow. I mean, like, there's still some verticals that they haven't, like Eldritch, but I guess because Eldritch isn't doing good in the data, so they're feeling that's fine. Also, they're nerfing Prize Fighter. That augment was also really good. Wow. What is precise planning? It's where if you win or lose by X amount of units, so in this case, you win or lose by 3, you get 3 gold. If you now you have to win or lose by 4, which means you could just always proc it at 2-1, 2-2, and you get 2 gold. So instead of getting 15 gold on stage 2, or 12 to 15 gold, you'll get 10 to like 8 to 10 gold. A pretty sizable nerf, but you'll proc it more consistently.
And then Prize Fighter. The Prize Fighter buff worked. This augment went from unpickable to really, really good.
Really, really good.
So slight nerf. It's going to take a little longer to get those extra components. So Prize Fighter nerf.
Micro changes.
Continuing on, Eldridge got buffed a lot.
Oh,
I don't think we can have Eldridge be buffed a lot and School Mascot then give it 30% AP.
Yeah,
that's kind of bonkers.
Oh,
so the AP
what?
gain from School Mascot's going to go down to 10%. That augment was actually doing pretty well despite Eldridge being weak. So don't want all the power in that augment. All right, Support Golem 1. This augment has been broken for a while. It's gone. We'll talk about Support Golem 2 in a minute. But Support Golem 1, it's gone.
Okay.
Unleash the Beast, another really strong augment, 10% less attack speed. Winter is coming. This has been another really good augment.
Yeah.
The way this works
There's
is
nerfing all like the crazy
Frost,
tempo augments.
Golems have 400 health. The Wolf has 130% of that, so 520. Now it'll just be the same. So this is a nerf to the health of that Frost Wolf.
Yeah.
It'll be weaker. Witchcraft Crest no longer grants a Cassiopeia. And then Worth the Wait 1. This augment's really fun. Players really enjoy this augment, especially trying to go for a 4-star.
The 4 stars.
But it's a bad augment, so we can buff it. So here, have 2 more copies. So cool.
Okay.
And then on the Prismatic side, same thing. A lot of these emblem ones are going to get nerfed. Blossoming Lotus real quick. Kind of a weak augment. We'll get 3% more crit. That should help it.
Wow.
But Blaster Crown, your Spear of Shojin is now a Tear of the Goddess.
Oh, wow.
Chrono Crown, your Archangel Staff is now a needlessly large rod.
These are big
Frost
changes.
Crown, your Protector's Vow is now a Chain Vest. Your support, your champion goes from Swing to Zillion.
Huge. This is
Hard
terrible.
Commit, this one is getting buffed. Instead of getting the unit after Carousel, you'll get it at the start of stage. So this should help it get a little earlier.
That's a big deal.
Honeymancer Crown, Gargoyle Stoneplate becomes Chain Vest.
Oh my god. Okay, they said that they're doing a micro patch, but these augment changes are massive. Like massive. Like it actually completely rebalances how you're going to be evaluating a lot of them. Man, they removed Support Golem 1. That's crazy. Well, I mean, good. It's just like way too good. It's because it gives you a unit that can fight. Like part of it was that it used to be stationary support 1, so you just got a target dummy, but now the golem can fight and actually deal stuff. It's just like, and it also can move, which is a big deal. Like sometimes the support golem walks to the back, trolls your positioning, like stuff like that. Whenever this happens, I think historically every time they've done this, where they break down the full component or full item into just components, these have historically been borderline unplayable. So I'm thinking of when they did like Assassin and they gave you like a glove or something like that. It just became like so much worse or something. So yeah, we'll see. Frost Crown is just way too much tempo. You get Swain, you get instant frontline, and you get a 3 cost that you can build around that is also difficult to kill. So like this was way too good, but now you get a Zillion and they give you a Chain Vest. Like what on earth? When on earth do I want this? When I have a spat, I guess. When I have a spat on 4-2 and I have a Wandering Trainer dummy, like, oh man. I guess that's fine though, because I personally think we've been playing too much with like our vertical emblems, so I'm okay with that. Hard commit, this is a pretty big deal. This basically makes it half a stage faster, which is a really big deal because every start of the stage, right? So you get it at 3-1 and 4-1 and 5-1 instead of 3-5, and it's just like a really big deal. So you're two rounds earlier. X4, X5 is a really big deal.
So
this might be a really
well.
good augment again.
Living Forge, one more turn per artifact. We're so glad people are finally enjoying artifacts. It seems like they finally turned on. People are enjoying them.
Yeah.
But a lot of these artifact augments are now way too strong because people figured them out.
Yep.
So
they're
one
OP.
less turn. No
OP.
big deal. Multi-striker crown, Quicksilver becomes a glove.
Oh, Caster's Toolbox.
Portal crown, Spear of Shojin
OP.
becomes a tier. Pyro crown, IE becomes a
what?
BF sword. Okay, support golem 2. This is the big nerf. This augment has been basically the best pick anywhere. Who cares what your board is? Take this augment. It's always amazing. This is a very large nerf.
Yeah.
It will go from 2 support items to 1 support item. It's basically the equivalent of what the gold one was. It might be garbage for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see. We did buff the golems as well. But
I like
yeah,
50
this was
HP.
way too good, and we had to take a big swing here. We can't have every competitive game decided by who got support golem 2. So had to happen. We'll see where it's at. If we have to do more, we will. But even giving it like a normal item,
holy
still
shit,
too strong. So
that is
Tiniest Titan Plus gets 7 more gold.
Augment is dead.
Big deal. Upward mobility, 1 less health per turn per level up.
They're nerfing the econs.
What the Forge, another artifact augment. This one we're just giving it 50% less health per artifact.
Way too good.
Still fun. You still get lots of artifacts. You still get that extra anvil.
Whoa!
And then the last augment here, worth the wait 2. Another terrible augment here.
Whoa!
But I think this augment's going to be quite good now. A lot of the 2 costs got buffed. And the correct play here is once you get your 3-star, you're getting 2 gold a turn.
Yeah.
2 gold a turn is great for
Except,
a prismatic on top of everything else. So
you can go for a 4-star.
Great. But if you really want to be silly, you can chase the 4-star 2 cost.
Yeah,
So
come on now.
You can chase that. But 2 gold a turn. All right,
Holy
Charms.
cow, that's crazy.
As always, we're
sorry.
adding 3,
Let me go back. This augment is now like to be down an entire support. This is basically just turning the gold into the prismatic, which with the minor compensation of getting a little bit extra HP on your golem, that's not good enough anymore. I can only see one comp that might want this, and that's like a multi-striker reroll type of thing, but like I don't think any comp wants this anymore, like at all. So I think they just straight up killed this augment. This is fun. I like that change. What the Forge is like the artifact stuff is really good. I actually think one prismatic augment, Spellcaster's Toolbox, is also too good. I think they need to remove the Zonias, and I think they should replace it with DFG or something. It's like way too good to get Zonias and Mana Zane right now. The combos itself is like also disgusting. Like any unit that really wants it can ramp. So I personally think that augment needs to get nerfed, but that's fine. Like they can't change like everything that I want. But we'll see.
All right, charms. As always, we're adding 3 new charms, but I do want to call out, this is the last batch. There are no more new charms coming after this.
Oh,
so,
Sag.
Charms, you've been fun. That's it. No more new charms. But here's the last 3. Combat Mastery, 2 gold. Next combat, gain 1 XP for each enemy your team kills.
I like this one.
This doesn't appear in Hyper Roll. But so if you can kill, 7 enemies, 8 enemies, ends up being worth it. Golden Armor. For 1 gold, your units gain 50 HP for every 10 gold you have. So if you're sitting at 50 gold,
that's interesting as well.
For teams, pretty good for 1 gold. And then kind of my favorite of the last batch is Scope Expansion. Your units in the back 2 rows gain +2 range. Pretty fun with Olaf, we've seen.
Yeah. They're bringing back scope weapons.
That, if you like that old scoped augment, there you go.
Yone.
All right, couple minor adjustments here. Barrier is going to cost 1 less gold. It hasn't been as powerful as we've seen it. Judgment is going to cost 2 less gold. Chariot's going to cost 1 less gold. And the Moon is going to cost 2 more gold. So
what are these again? There. So Judgment. These are all Xerath ones besides Barrier. Barrier is a shield. It gives you a shield. Barrier's like keepers for your whole team. Judgment. Which one's Judgment? Is that the one where like if you win you get EXP, or if you win you get gold, if you lose you get EXP? Okay. And then it is. Then Chariot's like the reroll one, or is that the one with the 5 costs? Is Chariot like your rerolls are now 1 less and EXP is leveling less? And then the Moon, I don't even know what the Moon is. The Moon is 5 cost odds. You know, they actually take the 5 cost odds from your 4 cost odds. That's like one thing that people don't realize. If you take the moon, you actually are actively sapping your ability to hit 4 costs. Just food for thought.
And then finally, sorry, hyper roll players, study hard. Should not have been appearing in hyper roll. That caused a lot of issues.
That does sound crazy.
That is fixed. Study hard will not appear in hyper roll.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. For those of you playing the 5.5 revival, there are a couple small balance changes here. Vayne is getting buffed. A little more damage.
Yep,
Nocturne is getting buffed. Some more attack speed if he hits one target.
Wow.
Draven's getting a pretty big buff. Poor Draven, the worst 4 cost. Rel is getting a slight nerf at 2-star. Viego 3 is getting buffed significantly.
Yes.
I won't spoil the surprise, but if you hit Viego 3 and went 5th with this, sorry about that.
I went
The
8th.
team made some improvements to Viego. Skirmisher 10 gets buffed. And then all 3 versions of Pandora's items have been disabled. So no Pandora's for you.
Okay.
And then finally, bug fixes. We fixed tooltips.
Wait, they didn't nerf isn't Aphelios insane in 5.5 right now, or what? I thought Aphelios was like really insane. So whatever. I haven't played enough to actually know. So
an emblem Arcana variant to specify they work differently with any tactician's item, not just tactician's crown. Honeymancer bees no longer repeatedly fire if their target was shielded. This is a wild bug that was actually making Honeymancer better than intended against shielded targets.
What?
If the bees fired and hit a shielded target, they would just keep firing at 3 Honeymancer. It's one of the reasons why 3 Honeymancer looks so much better in the data. So expect 3 Honeymancer to actually be a little worse now. Fixed various issues with the Overachievers portal. So Overachievers should actually be playable now. The Shen augment, so many bugs with this thing, but no longer...
I knew it! I actually said this was probably one of the things that was happening. I was like, where is he targeting sometimes? I feel like he's ulting like at the bench. I actually said this before. I knew this was actually... Okay, you know what? My conspiracy theories, I only hit like 10% of the time, but sometimes I nail it. I actually nail it. I actually called this. I was like, there's no way that is the right line. Okay, I knew it, man. I knew it.
Considers benched units when targeting.
I knew it.
Shen hero augment should be better.
Oh, man.
Fixed a bug where mages could have less starting mana than intended. That's another buff to mages.
Yeah. It's a really big buff.
Fixed some mana interactions with 10 mage. Someone in my chat was talking about this. If you had like a blue buff on them or you got counterspelled, it would revert back. That all works now. 10 mage is still really, really strong. Torment of Souls Arena, center texture no longer disappears. Okay. Plot holes of redemption. We fixed an issue where it was healing a flat amount. The road not traveled has been fixed. Augment road redemption automatically completing on first death.
Okay.
Fixed forgotten. Units visually losing their stacks when benched and returned to arena.
Oh.
And then fixed 1-cost hero augments on Dawn of Heroes not being uniquely offered in the augment phase.
I've seen that.
So there you go. Like I said, it's a patch that has a lot of changes if you count the number of changes, but I don't think it's actually going to wildly change things. A lot of the strong comps will still be strong.
Yeah.
But hopefully more things are playable, right? Like Bastions should be playable. Some of those low-cost units should be able to come back. Mages certainly on the top of my radar. Like I said, if mages end up wildly broken, we will react very quickly. Could be another one of those even like day of patch micro patches.
Wow.
So I'll keep you updated, but definitely want to keep an eye on that. And yeah, but like this is where we're at in the set, right? You're not going to see giant reworks. You're not going to see crazy things like that. You're just going to see micro adjustments of 2 AD or 3 AD. So yeah, there you go. That's the patch.
Okay.
And like I said, we're getting close to the end. We're getting really close to the end, actually.
Yeah, it's almost over.
Things are happening as the month goes on. So yeah, should be good. All right, that's going to do it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Good luck on your climb as we wrap up the end of the set, and good luck to all the competitors who are going to be doing their like regionals and stuff like that as we come towards the end, and we'll see who makes worlds as we always do. So, all right, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.
All right, thank you, Mort. Overall, I think the patch is actually bigger than I thought it would be, and I think that maybe even bigger than necessary. The biggest impact is the augments, and augments shape your entire game plan, but they also did buff a lot of these units. I don't know, we'll have to see. The early game is going to change, I think, in terms of the unit prio. I do think there's other things that they buff, like the 4 Vanguard, which is very subtle, but I think important, because Vanguard improves a lot of people's mid to late game situations. I like that they didn't nerf the 4 cost that hard. and some of the item changes are actually quite good. But I do wonder if I do wonder how this impacts things, because like red buff is worse, Varus got nerfed, Pyro got nerfed, Arcana got nerfed. So they're saying they're not nerfing Varus that hard, but if you just keep chipping away at it, it's like the sum of its parts thing. Like, so it's entirely possible that some, like, it just adds up to be a little too much, and then as a result, other things get buffed and it just can't compete anymore. So yeah, just keep an eye out. They cut some comps like 5-6 ways. They've buffed some things 5-6 ways, very small, like as more is saying, by like 10% here, 5% here. But TFT is so, like, you know, is bounced on a knife's edge, so it's very careful. You have to be very careful when you do that kind of stuff.